All right, welcome to Be the Market Expert. And so what we're going to do, let's start this off by looking at Resi Club, and it says real estate shakeup. Why rocket companies just agreed to buy struggling Redfin. All right, so I don't know if you guys are really going to have these conversations with your consumers yet. I think that it's important for us to at least kind of have, I don't know, some kind of thoughts on this, because here's the thing. With what we're seeing in our industry, we are seeing compression of commissions. And what that looks like is when we start talking about the real estate process, I would say that lenders as well as real estate agents primarily earn the majority of the money that comes through those transactions, all right, outside of the buyer and the seller, right? When we're just talking about the services piece of things. And so what we've been seeing over the last couple of years is these companies that are attached to the real estate space have been purchasing more companies to give them more market share, right? They want a bigger piece of the pie. And it's finite, right? In the grand scheme of things, there's only a certain amount of dollars that can truly come out of these real estate transactions. And so a lot of these publicly held companies, they have shareholders. And so with their shareholders, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get more money. They're for-profit companies. We totally get that. We live in a capitalist society. And so when we look at this, we see Rocket, and let's just think of it as Rocket Mortgage. That's where my head goes. We got Rocket Mortgage buying Redfin. Okay. Well, when we look down, I agree with, some of these things. The first thing they're saying is, well, it's going to introduce more consumers to the Rocket ecosystems. Yeah, 50 million monthly visitors use Redfin as a search platform. So what they're doing is these guys are competing with Zillow, they're competing with Realtor.com, they're competing with Homes.com as Redfin does. And so then when you're going through, you provide this platform, you have this platform where people are going to it to go look at pretty houses. And then they naturally click through, they ask for more information, and they get attached to a real estate agent. That's what Redfin is, right? It also says drive Rocket's purchase mortgage growth. Yeah, duh, right? Like mortgage is what Rocket does. My thought process is Rocket is really a lead aggregator. All right. So when I think about the ecosystem, which is Redfin, and I think of the ecosystem, which is Rocket Mortgage, I do think of them as lead aggregators, which means like people are coming into their ecosystem and they are clicking around looking for more information, how to get cheap rates, more information on this home, go for a home tour, what's my home worth, insert whatever here, people click on it, and now a lead is captured. Well, before, what mortgage would do or what Rocket would do is they would sell the lead out, right? So then the lead gets captured by Rocket. They sell the lead out to a real estate agent, and then they go through and they transact business, and Rocket gets attached to the mortgage side of things. Same thing with Redfin. If Redfin wasn't in the area to service the lead, they would also sell the lead out to a real estate agent. Well, now what Rocket's going to be able to do is they're going to be able to double in those deals in the sense to where they're going to go through, they're going to have the mortgage application side of things, they're going to have the real estate agent side of things, and they're going to bring in more money. Obviously, AI technology, personalization at scale, right? They're going to go through. Again, they are going to have a lot of properties. They're going to be able to have all the analytics. They're going to be able to go through and have all the sell sides, and they're going to say, like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, that home that you purchased 5 years ago, you're locked in at this rate because we supplied the rate to you. Your home's gone up X amount of dollars in value, and we think it's actually time for you to refinance because you'll be able to sell or be able to save X amount per month. And obviously, synergies, they're going to make, they believe, $200 million by 2027. So what they're going and they're looking at this thing, they're going to, again, the two biggest sections when we talk about real estate and the piece of the pie is the mortgage side of things and the real estate side of things. Now one company is going to be able to put all these together. And this is no different than what Zillow's been doing over the last couple of years, right? Zillow went through and they turned themselves into brokerages, and they went out and they got Zillow Title, they got Zillow Mortgage, They're Zillow home insurance, right? They're just packaging all this stuff together. Your one-stop shop. Now, Rocket's doing it, and we're seeing different things, right? Even what we're doing inside of KW, we don't know what our true end game is with our new strategic partnership yet. It's going to open new doors for every real estate agent in our ecosystem, which is going to be big. This is the thing. We do need to have influxes of cash that are coming through, because money can open more doors, and that's good for all of us, right? So we're going to keep seeing kind of what this thing does. They're not going to wrap this up until sometime by the end of 2025, but yet I don't think this is really going to change anything that we're seeing. Again, they were already lead aggregation companies. They were already lead aggregators, where they were coming through, they were putting it out there, they were collecting leads. Now they just merged. Both companies were already out there, they were already doing their things. Now they're just together. I think that their piece of the pie pretty much stays the same. They're just together now. Then let's go through, and Realtor.com went through and they did the study, and it says housing supply gap reaches nearly 4 million in 2024. And here's your highlights. So let's talk about these highlights, right? It says in 2024, new home construction outpaced household formation for the first time since 2016. All right, cool. So like when we look at this thing, I'm like, all right, so we have more homes being built than people getting together and purchasing houses, right? Like we're talking where we have, a marriage coming together, we have people starting to date, they're coming together, they're buying a house, they got friends, whatever. It says home completions reached the highest level in nearly 2 decades due to an increase in both single and multifamily construction. Well, this makes sense to us, right? Like as we're looking at this, when we're looking at the issues that we're having currently, the biggest issue inside of housing is affordability. So we have these affordability issues, and there's primarily because people don't have enough money to go spend $600,000 on a house. They got to go to a bank. Not breaking news, right? So when we go through and we look at this, we have an affordability issue. Well, one of the new builds, one of the greatest levers that they have is they're their own bank. They get to set their own interest rates. So they can actually go through and they can say, hey, we're running these incentives. So in a market like this, where we know that people still need shelter and owning a home is still the American dream, it might just be on the back burner because a lot of people just don't think they can achieve it. Right now, this is an environment where new builds succeed. New builds succeed because, again, they don't have the same constraints as a residential resale that has a lender that's associated with it. So we go through, and so we know this is an estimated 1.6 million expected Gen Z and millennial households did not form in 2024 due to various factors. Okay, like we get this. So when we're talking about these factors and we're diving into them, what we have to look at is this: an estimated 1.6 Gen Z and millennials. Guys, this is the next generations that are coming in. And what is their biggest issue as well? Affordability. Affordability is going to be the biggest issue that they run into. And so, what are they doing right now? I don't know if you guys have been following the news, but I've also been seeing a lot of stuff, or I think it's called reverse retirement. I should pull this up, but I think it's called reverse retirement, to where they're doing, or maybe it's micro retirement, it's something like that. Google it, it's interesting, to where these younger generations, what they're doing is that they don't believe that they're actually going to be able to retire. They also don't know if owning a home is ever going to be something in their future, despite, maybe potentially being able to inherit the home, or if they go through and they do insert whatever here. So what they're doing is they're going on vacations, right? Just like when we were talking about like millennials living in their parents' basements and eating avocado toast. It's almost the same thing going on right now, except for they're going out and they're spending their money on these experiences. So they're foregoing purchasing houses because of what the affordability issue. They're staying wherever they are, right? Affordability. And this is going to be interesting. It says the South has the largest housing gap by number of units at 1.15 million, but the smallest gap relative to the total construction in the research period. It says the Northeast has the largest scaled housing gap, followed by the Midwest and the West. So we're going through, and so we have one of the largest housing gaps in the United States when we talk about the West. And in 2024, the rate of construction relative to household formation and pent up demand, it would take 7.5 years to close the housing gap. Here's the thing, guys. When I'm looking at this data, this is what we need to keep in mind. We will never, ever build our way out of this housing shortage that we have. And so when we're going and we're talking about the housing shortage, we have to keep in mind, firstly, new builds, new construction. They are a for-profit company. They have shareholders. They are not building houses for their for nonprofits. They're not the March of Dimes, right? When we're going through and we're thinking about these new builds, they're doing it to make money. They're going to slow the construction process down to a point to where they can continue to make money. Resales, right? Resales, what we're seeing is people hold on to their house because they have a dollar amount that they believe it is, and they don't want to lose money on their home. We're also going to see people that actually continue to hold houses like we have always seen, and they're just going to be given down to other generations, and or people are going to just be holding on to them and using them for rental properties and or vacation rentals in some kind of manner, facet, or form. We also have to think about this. Gen Z and millennial households did not form. Okay, so when I think about this, Gen Z and millennial households did not form in 2024. Well, when they do form, okay, so let's just say down the road, they do start purchasing houses. It's inevitable. There's going to be some that are going to be able to afford it. There's going to be some that aren't, just like in every generation. Here's what we have to keep in mind. They're just removing inventory off the board. All right. And when a Gen Z and a millennial go to buy a house, they do not have a house to sell. So they are going to be going through, they're going to be taking inventory off the board, and there's not going to be more inventory backfilling behind them. We are not going to be able to outbuild ourselves out of this issue. We are never going to have enough homes for everyone that needs shelter. That's why we are not going to ever see outside of something catastrophic to where home prices go down to a point to where we have flash sales like we had in the early 2000s. All right. That's what we have to keep in mind when we're talking about all these conversations, when we're having conversations with our buyers, consumers, the public. We're just out at a party and it comes up and someone's like, I'm waiting for the crash, the Airbnb bus, the silver tsunami, the insert, whatever crazy headline here that gets people to click. We will not see any of this coming to fruition because there's still not enough inventory for us to have any flash sales. So it brings us to our next one. And it says rising property taxes are forcing retirees out of some states. All right, so this one's interesting. So here's just your visual, and it's basing it off of 2023. All right, so they haven't done enough information to pull it from 2024. So let's go in as we look at this thing. Let's dive into it a little bit deeper, right? So we're going in, and here's our scale, right? We got 2%, we got 0.5%, and this is coming from John Burns, which is just research and consulting. Here we are in Colorado. You guys can see we are 0.5% up to 1% in Colorado. We are this square right here, and there's Denver. It's mostly coming from the Northeast. Here's the Northeast. And ironically, this is where a lot of people are moving to right now. We have a lot of people moving to the Northeast because home prices are lower. So what we also need to keep in mind is something interesting is being talked about in Florida right now. Florida, they're having conversations about getting rid of property taxes. Like that is on for discussion in Florida right now, where they're saying, What if we got rid of property taxes? All right. So this could get interesting because what we do know is this: well, property taxes are state, right? So first and foremost, your property taxes are at your local municipalities, right? When we're talking about Jefferson County, it's in Jefferson County, right? Like it's not going out to, Commerce City. And so if we start getting rid of property taxes, then how the municipality is going to raise money? They're going to probably have to raise sales taxes. Sales taxes, especially for a place like Florida, would get interesting because Florida has a lot of retirees. Also, what they have going on in Florida is they have a lot of tourism. And so if we don't have a cheap vacation anymore and it starts feeling like Vegas, for anyone that's been to Vegas recently, Vegas has gotten super expensive, right? And when we go through and we look at why Vegas got expensive, we could probably point to uh, NFL, professional sports teams, right? We could point to the NHL. We could point to all these different things that are happening. This is going to be interesting to see kind of as this thing goes on, because I do think the taxes as well as insurance, right? When we start talking about affordability issues, as those things are raising and they're going up higher and higher, we're going to see more people go to some other states. It's just a matter of which states that they go to. Especially when we start thinking about this, like we are one of the higher price states in these areas. So we'll probably see more people move from Texas into Colorado. That's probably very real. Some of these other states, as we go through and we start looking at like Kansas price point isn't really comparable to us. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where these people start migrating and then what it does to their ecosystems. Just as like Colorado, we saw a lot of people coming from California and New York, as well as Texas, into Colorado, and that obviously had an impact on what it looked like in our state. So we'll keep a watch on this and just kind of watch what's happening with taxes.
Hey, Charles, quick
Yes.
question on that. It says the median property tax rate in 20, property tax rate. I was thinking it was state tax. I'm like, this doesn't look right to me, but so these are property tax rates.
This is property tax rates. And where I think it's going to get interesting is like a state like Florida, when they're talking about getting rid of property taxes, well, they're going to have to bring that income in from somewhere. And so they're going to raise sales taxes in that area. So there's always a correlation. So it's going to be interesting as we're seeing some of these kind of rise. Some of them are already talking about just getting rid of them completely. Like this is on the table in Florida right now.
Wow.
So we'll monitor it. We'll see what kind of goes on. All right. Here we go. We got Logan Motoshami, our lead analyst for Housing Wire. And like we do on this call, we talk about what he talked about last Friday. And it says purchase applications have seen 5 weeks of positive year-over-year growth. Hard stop, guys. Like we could probably stop right there. And this tells me people are defying. People are going through, they're seeing what interest rates are at right now. They are seeing them go down. We are in a seasonal market. We are in a seasonal industry. Do you know who your consumers are that went out and talked to a lender without talking to you first? Did your preferred lender send you a referral? Two questions right there, right? Like that's what I'm thinking about right here. When I'm seeing this is how we're leading this thing off. And we're saying, hey guys, for 5 weeks, consumers have been raising their hands, talking to lenders, because this is what this is, and saying, how much do I qualify for? I'm interested in buying a home. And that's what's going on right here. And so it says mortgage rates are declining, and Reach's purchase application data shows a promising 9% week to week increase and a 2% rise compared to the previous year. Does this indicate that the housing market is beginning to wake up just in time for springs? And he says, while I wouldn't say we're experiencing a full revival just yet, the latest data suggests that we're stabilizing. And absolutely. Here's the thing, guys, interest rates have been super high. The media has been telling these narratives for 2+ years at this point. Interest rates are finally coming down. Now they're not coming down because of inflation. That has nothing to do with it. Kim sent me a photo of Costco eggs the other day, and I was super jealous. And they're so expensive still. And with that being said, what's driving a lot of this information right now is more of a fear of a recession. And the fear of recession that they're having is that people are going to be losing their jobs. And the big one that we're seeing that's ticking right now is really just the federal government. So we're looking at this thing and we're diving in, and it says there was no year over year growth to report when comparing 2024 and 2023. All right. So we're looking at 14 negative prints, two flat prints, two positive prints, and that was over your last year. So then it goes through and it says 2025 mortgage rates have ranged from 726 to 664. Well, let's go look down here and we go through three positive, three negative, two flats. It says we've hit an exciting milestone with 5 weeks of positive year over year growth. What's encouraging is the mortgage rates have dipped below 664, which didn't happen until recently, signaling that we have the potential to grow more if mortgage rates head down towards 6. Guys, there's a lot of smart people out there that believe that where we will end up, not necessarily this year, but sometime next year in 2026, is we're going to stay at like 5.5, right? 5.5%. So 5.5% is probably where we're going to live. It's not 3, right? We are not going to live in 3% interest rates. I know that we saw those. That was a gift from God, and we're not going to run into those probably ever again in any of our lifetimes, as it has caused a lot of the chaos that we're in now. So let's look at pending sales. We went from 314 in 2023 up to 334 in 2024 to 323 right now. Here we are. We're just climbing and we're climbing, and we're going to kind of see what this thing does. It did flatten out a little bit, but homes under contract. So it's this pending homes. We would expect, based off of new home purchase application data, that we're going to see this number go up here over the next couple of weeks as consumers are getting approved for credit from their lenders to go purchase houses. Again, this line 2022, we're not going to be able to compete with that. That's still when interest rates are super cheap. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield. We're not going to talk about mortgage spreads, but let's talk about inventory. So we saw inventory go up. All right. Week over week, we saw inventory go up from 642 to 639. Or I'm sorry, from 639 to 642. So we're seeing inventory going up. If we were looking at this same time last year, we're going from it, and it's looking at 498 to 500,000. And when we're diving in a little bit more, what we can see is this all-time inventory bottom was at 240,000 in 2022. The inventory peak was at in 2024, 739. So guys, we say all that to say this. We're getting more inventory. More inventory is good. Let me hit refresh because for some reason, there it is. Here we go, right here. Guys, this is where we're living right now. 28% more inventory right now than we did last year. Again, 2020, super low rates right here. We're like, oh my God, we have this pandemic. What is our world going to look like for the rest of our lives? Are we going to be wearing masks and staying inside for forever? Inventory just sat there, and then we couldn't keep it on the board. And again, most of this information right here is hard to read only because it takes time to get the data, but yet homes were coming off the market so quickly, it wasn't able to capture it. And then here's 2019. We want 2019. 2019 is a normal market. New listing data. When we go through and we look at this thing, here we are. Guys, we're right in the mix. We want to see more homes hitting the market. This is good news for us. Price cut percentages, we're still in that 1/3. All right. So 1/3 is where we want to be. That's where we're going to live. We're okay with 1/3. And so when we're looking at 1/3 of data, it's kind of interesting because, again, when we talk about seasonality, we're getting into the seasonal part of our business where things start getting exciting and busy. And yet, like when we go through and we look at this 2025 data, we're seeing more than what we've seen in the past. And so a big reason for this is more homes are hitting the market, which means that there's more competition, which means if you're motivated and you need to sell your house, you need to be cheaper than the next home. Here's the thing, it does not pay to be the second cheapest. If we're talking like to like product, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,500 square foot, 2 car garage, and it's in the same neighborhood and they're pretty much in the same condition, you're choosing the cheaper one. Always. Like you always choose the cheaper one if it's like for like. This is why we're seeing more price cuts right now is there's more inventory, there's more competition. And if you need to sell your house and you had it listed for X and you were just like, well, I do need to sell, but there's nothing else in the market. Let's see what I can get. And then you sat for a little bit and more homes have popped up in the market. Then you're making a play to, okay, well, I need to sell my house. I need to be the cheapest home in the area. So that's why we're seeing it look like that. Jobless claims, here we go. We saw a little bit of a spike and then we dropped a little bit. Guys, this is going to be a roller coaster. This is just going to keep going up and down. And again, we haven't seen anything with this yet, only because a lot of these guys are getting their potential checks to walk away and they're going to be playing chicken to see kind of what happens. I do believe that as this thing goes forward, we will see more jobless claims. What's interesting, when we start thinking about our sector, there's a lot of conversation around workers. And there's a lot of conversation around undocumented workers. Well, here's the thing. Those numbers won't affect this whatsoever because this is truly going to be people that are paying their taxes. And if we're talking about undocumented workers, they don't have an I-10. I-10 that means that they're not going to be paying taxes. And so even if there was a huge influx of traffic leaving the United States for fears of deportation and or insert whatever consequence here, this number is not going to be affected by that. So while this will be interesting to watch, just as we're going through and we're looking at it, because guys, this is truly what's driving interest rates right now. Jobless claims is what's driving our interest rates in the United States, because again, we have a Fed that believes that there is a direct correlation with people having jobs to they have too much money because there's too many people employed. And if there's too much money, they're going to keep spending the money that they have. And so they're not going to drop rates until more people are losing their jobs. That's just the unfortunate reality of where we live. So Logan says, stay tuned as the insights we gain could shape our understanding of the economy in the next coming months. Yeah, guys, that's just all we're going to do right here. Like, this is what we're going to watch, and we're just going to kind of see how this thing plays out. Let's look at interest rates. Oh, go ahead.
I do have a question, Charles.
Yeah.
On your comments about, more listings coming on the market, and this is what we want to see, and this is all a good thing. Is it not only a good thing if the buyer demand is, alongside of it, coincidental, because it's just moving us more into a buyer's market if you have all these listings, but we still have the challenges associated with affordability, and we're just not getting the buyers.
Well, I think that's the thing. So more inventory comes on the market. Who's selling their house? The people that actually need to sell their house, right? Like, if you're not going to just put your home on the market to see what the market could bring. Like that was 2020, 2021, where it was like, I'm just going to put my home on the market, and if someone gives me $1 million, I'll sell my house, and then I'll just go somewhere else. Like, I think that was very real. This thing, what we're seeing is we're going to see motivated sellers put their home on the market. They are going to have more competition, which is going to drop prices, and not significantly. Like, I don't think anyone's going to lose money. Yes, there's going to be people that are going to lose money. Yes, that will happen, only because there are people that bought at the height of the market with interest rates being whatever they were, and they could potentially lose money. Yes. And yet what's going to happen is what we're going to see is we're going to see prices come back in line, which is going to help affordability, and people are going to buy houses. Also, what I think that we're seeing right now is it didn't feel good when we were living up here. right? 7.1% and 6.9%, right? We're talking about August or April 29th, 2024, right? I think we can get a little bit higher. There we go. There's April 25th, 6.2 and still 6.9. This is what held a lot of people back because yes, prices were still very high with high prices and the cost of money. We had an affordability issue, and we still do to some extent today. Yet, this, when we're talking about 6.5, again, a lot of economists believe that we're only going to get down to 5.5. We're going to hover around 5.5 probably for years, despite things happening and kind of ticking it around a little bit. But 5.5 is where we're going to flatline essentially. So when we're going through and we're thinking about this, and we know this is what the cost of money is looking like, we have more inventory come on, more inventory is coming online. We start seeing prices come down a little bit. They're not going up as quickly as they were. The right homes are still going to sell really, really quickly. And yet, we're going to see more buyers coming to the table to purchase a house. And what we also know is this: most sellers become buyers. And so not only is the seller going to go through and they're going to say, well, I feel like, potentially maybe I had to give up a little bit to sell this house, but they're going to be the recipient on that on the buy side as well. And so I do think it's going to be a win-win. I do think we're going to see more buyers come to the table as interest rates are continuing to go down and more inventory is coming online. Now, this is where I think it becomes an issue. And this is why they're slowing it down as much as they have been. If this goes down too quickly, the issue that we could run into, and this is why they're watching the unemployment numbers. The unemployment numbers go up too quick. And let's say that the Doge accomplishes its goal and they get rid of all of the federal workers that they have deemed too expensive for what they do. Then what we have is we have this huge influx of unemployment. And then what does the Fed do? They lower rates to encourage spending, and interest rates come down. People go and purchase houses, and then we get into some potential bidding wars again on homes that we shouldn't have bidding wars on. That's where we could see the issue. So that's why they're monitoring what they're monitoring so that they can actually keep it to a place to where we do see a little bit of growth. They do want to see some positive, if not flat prints, but we don't want to keep seeing negative prints as well, because we are really the only product in the United States that we pretty much build in the United States. And so that is money for the government. So good question. But here it is, right? So we're looking, this is just 1 month in time. We're continuing to go down. If we were to go back to Housing Wire, I can give you the real number to where we are sitting today. Conforming 679, and your FHA is 646. Again, what I think is also interesting is when these numbers were a little bit lower over the last couple months, we did see a lot of people take up some 15 years. That's where it's going to get weird, is these 15 years coming due, or they just took some kind of arm, which we haven't seen since like the 1980s. And we see this as like an investor. I see investors go do this and then they just roll the dice, and 15 years are going to refinance out of it and be good. But as consumers, as just the general public, this isn't something that they've done since the 80s. So I'm very curious on how this plays out over the next few years. So let's look at Arvada, let's look at Altos, let's look at ALLL2, and what we can see, we have a little bit of a spike. 649,000, let's call it 650 between friends. 650,000 is our median home price. And our median list price of new homes is $565,000. So we're seeing new homes come online a little bit cheaper. And when we're looking at this thing, the price per square foot is kind of flattened out. Average days on market, I'm going to pretty much call this flat, 120. Average days on market, guys. This is the conversation we need to be having when we're at the dining room table. And this is what's interesting. When we're talking about 44% of people taking a price cut in ALLL2, which is higher than the national average, it's because they have more competition. And so what they're doing is they're putting their home on the market. They're seeing what the market will bring them. And then the neighbor comes online and the neighbor's cheaper. You don't ever want to be the second cheapest house. You don't ever want to be the second cheapest product ever, right? Unless you're different. But when we're talking apples to apples and we're talking like for like, it never pays. And so this is a race to the bottom. So this is what we see when we're talking about median, right? We're cutting out all of the outliers, all the ones that fell offline in a weekend. We're taking all the people that fell offline in 6 months, 35 days. You're talking almost 1 month compared to 4 months in time if you price your home right. Think about that. That's 4 less payments or 3 less payments, right? You're going through, that's 3 less months of property taxes, water bills, electricity, insert holding costs. Maybe you're staging and you're having to put everything in a pod or a moving truck and or whatever here. These are the conversations we need to have with our consumers. If we price the home right, and we price it competitively, and competitively isn't what our neighbors did in 2021 or 22 or 23 or even 24. It's who's on the market today that we're competing against. We can actually save about 3 months of time and get your home sold, which is going to save you money, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So price decrease is 44%. 11% is homes coming online. Again, we talk about this. Number doesn't excite me, but this is just new builds. This is phase 2, 3, and 4 that they're going through. The homes are already on the MLS, and they're just raising the price because it's a new lot location and stuff like that. Relisted 11%. This is homes that fell out of contract and have come back online. Inventory is a score of 18. Your median rent price is 3,100, which has come down and starting to creep back up a little bit. We'll see what this number does. I suspect it will just keep coming down less and less and less, or more and more. And then your market action report is giving it a score of 48, which is just saying it's slightly better of a seller's market right now than it was last month. Not huge, but we're seeing a little bit of a movement.